Test. Got me. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for being here. Even if you're just resting your feet, I'm going to talk to you anyways. I'm Brett with Merkrete Systems, also representing SIKA Tile as well. And Hector and I are going to be doing a quick demo, spend a little bit of time here talking about ready-to-use grout, which is kind of the new thing in grouts where you've got a grout that's already pre-mixed, you open the lid and you're ready to use it. These are all new generation types of grouts, much easier to use than they used to be in the past. We're also going to be talking about and showing you an epoxy demo for epoxy grouts. I know whenever we talk about epoxy, a lot of people will kind of like cringe or get scared, and epoxy is typically one of those things and a lot of people don't want to touch. We're going to show you guys how easy epoxy is. It's one of my favorite types of grouts that are out there. Epoxy grouts are tremendous products for contractors. They're great for upsells and being able to use an epoxy grout and make a little bit additional money on that tile job that they're doing. But again, the ready-to-use grout that we're going to be using the SIKA Tile ready-to-use grout, but we've also got in the Merkrete line the Elite grout, which is also a ready-to-use grout. Very similar products. These are acrylic-based products. The original products that were coming out years ago that were ready to use were urethane-based, and urethane-based products were extremely difficult to use. The acrylic now is so much easier to use. You can actually grout a little bit further than you could with the ones in the past. Easier to clean up. They dry a little bit quicker. They're just great products. The color pigment in these is actually a quartz pigment. So when we say it's truly ready to use, that means you open the lid and it's ready to use. Since it's not a pigmented product, we don't have to mix it. It's ready to go. When you open the bucket, you'll notice inside, if you want to open that for me, Hector, and kind of show, you'll see that there's actually a little piece of plastic right there. That little piece of plastic is just kind of like a cap. Helps keep the product fresh. And the nice thing is let's say we only use a little bit of this product. We use it, we can take that little piece of plastic, put it right back on top, put the lid there, and it will last for about 6 months if it's stored in the proper environment. So we don't want to store it in the garage in Palm Springs, but it will last. So the nice thing is it is also a reusable product. The really unique thing to this is being that it is an acrylic with a colored quartz is you don't have to seal this product. So there's no sealing required. Once it's done, it's done. Also, to a really good bullet point to remember on this, we can use this in what we refer to as intermittent wet areas. Some of the premixed grouts that are out there, or the ready-to-use grouts, are not made or cannot be used in intermittent. When we say intermittent, that's going to be, for example, shower walls or a shower floor. So this can be used in those environments. So that is a great selling point to this product for us. But again, it's ready to use, it's pre-mixed, you don't have to mix it at all. You can store it and use it again down the line, as long as the product's still good, and you go. It uses and cleans, or you're using it, installing it, and cleaning it up just as you would a regular grout. So you can see Hector here. The first thing Hector did is he actually took a sponge, a little damp sponge, not super wet, and kind of wiped the surface off. You're doing two things with that. One, when you wipe the surface off, is any dust or contaminants that might be there. But the second thing also, too, is helps as a lubricant. It helps make it easier to push around and spread. Being that this is not a Portland cement-based product, it is a little thicker consistency. Okay? And you'll see that when he's spreading it. But what's nice is it sticks to the trowel really well, or the float that he's using, and we can push it right into the joints. So he's going to take this, he's going to do a little bit of the board. Did we decide if we're doing half the board or the whole board? Most of it? Yeah, okay. So what he's got up here is black. Now, if you can see real closely, it almost, is this black or is this gray? Okay, this is black. You can see that it almost looks gray. It actually has a little bit of a white tint to it, which is actually part of the acrylics, which actually, when it cures out, it goes away. And I will say we've done some looks, and I don't want to say tests, but we've done some looks with some of the competitive products. As for a black grout, this is almost a true black, wouldn't you say, Tom? Yeah, it's almost a true black. It's not a charcoal, it's not a taupey color, but it's a true black. You can see all Hector's doing, it is a vertical surface, so you're always going to have mess on vertical surface, but you can see it goes into the joint super easy. He's taking it, he's putting it in just as you would with any traditional type of grout. Now, this is our color list for our grouts. We've got anything from your whites all the way through your beiges and some different colors. The ready-to-use grouts are going to be 22 or all colors? 14 colors, sorry. 14 colors in the ready-to-use, and it's going to be the most popular colors. You're making a mess, Hector. Any questions at this point? I'll let him get a little bit further. I'm sorry? Well, that's the difference. Thank you for that. He's asking if you leave it too long, it dries quick. Actually, you've got great working time with this product. There are products out there from other manufacturers that you typically have to do anywhere from 9 to 12 or 15 square feet before you have to start cleaning it up. This product, you can get probably around 20 to 30 square feet, depending on the size of the tile and how many grout joints you're dealing with, before you need to address it and start cleaning up. So it doesn't dry that fast. So it is definitely workable. It doesn't leave a haze, a urethane haze on it. So urethanes are the ones that you could only do like 9 square feet at a time. Okay, so he's got it in the grout joints. Now, traditionally with a regular grout, how long would you wait before you have to clean it up? With a traditional grout, typically it could be anywhere from 20 minutes to 30 minutes to 40 minutes. It's typically what we say is when you can touch it firmly and it does not transfer to your finger. That's when it's time to clean up. With these types of grouts, we can start cleaning up pretty much immediately once it gets inside that joint. So he's going to take a little bit of water. He's got the sponge with microfiber pad built onto one side. What he's going to do is traditional cleanup, circular motions, tooling the grout joints, getting the grout joints where we want them to be. And then he's going to wipe it off with fresh water, and we're done. It's pretty easy use, wouldn't you say? Sealer built into it, so you don't have to come back and seal it. For the distributors here in the audience, it's a real big selling point for homeowners that it does not have to be sealed. And we are noticing in the contractor trade, as in grout selection or grout types of selections, that we're starting to see a real rise in ready-to-use grouts. Have you guys started to notice that you're starting to see more people using the ready-to-use grouts because they are becoming a lot easier to use? Pretty easy. Then we would just do it. He's going to do one final wipe on it. After he does that final wipe on it, we walk away from it, and it's done. We just let it dry. Now, as I said earlier, kind of hitting on these, we can use this in intermittent wet areas, meaning the showers, bathtubs. We can use it on shower floors. We can use it with any size tile. We can use it with mosaics, all the way up to thin gauge porcelains, panel type size tiles. Tile size does not matter. Grout joint, we're going from about a 16th, a little over a 16th, or what I would consider the lug joints, up to ½ inch in joint width. It's got a good aggregate to it. It's got a bigger aggregate to it, yeah. Which that aggregate is a quartz, and that's the color. So what's nice is if you were to look at the water over here that he's got, that water has barely changed any color because it's not pigmented, so he's not pulling the pigments out of it. What do you think? Okay, truckload. What's that? Yeah. There's how you clean it. Hector. He's expensive though, trust me. And again, this is the SIKA tile that we're using, but also in the Merkrete is the elite version of it, and they're both the same. All right, good enough, Hector. Let's get our epoxy. Okay, we're going to be doing epoxy grout now, which this is actually one of my favorites. Who here's scared of epoxy grout? Yeah, we got it here. People hear the word epoxy and they cringe. Now, I've been in this business, in the ceramic tile business, of going on 36 years now. And when I started in the industry, if you mentioned epoxy, people would run to the hills, and they still do. Not as bad now, but back in the old days, epoxy, you'd have to wear gloves to your shoulders. Sometimes you'd have to wear some people might have to wear a respirator because they might be allergic to the resins in them. Epoxies are on, probably their 20th generation, and they are so much easier to use now. Epoxy grouts, I tell you, do you have another board you want me to grab?
Oh, yeah.
Is with epoxy grouts, I always say this: give me your best installer, and give me identical jobs. So we've got 2 identical jobs. We give that installer, your best installer, a regular standard grout, then give me epoxy. I will be at the bar drunk before he's ever done. And I don't drink, so it's going to take a little while for me to get there. Actually, it won't take very long at all. But epoxy grouts are so much easier to use. We actually put surfactants in these, which is a fancy word for soap. So when that soap is in it, it makes it easier to clean. Some guys will put soft scrub in their water or a little Dawn dish soap. We don't need to do that because we've already put it in there for you. So this is a 100% solid epoxy grout, meaning that it is a 3-part system. So there's a filler, there is a resin, and there is a hardener. Now, some manufacturers already have the 100% solids where you have the filler and the resin already mixed to where all you're doing is adding the hardener. We don't do that. We don't like to do that because when we have this bag of sand here, which is our color, when we have this, if we're doing a vertical surface, I'm going to put the whole bag in. If I'm doing a horizontal surface, I'm going to hold back probably about a pound of it, because it just makes it easier to push around, but it does not change the color of the product at all. Your floors would still match your walls. So this is actually your color. This is a pen sand. When he opens it, I'll let you guys feel it, pass a little bit around, but it's a very, very fine coated sand, which is your color. And as you can see, what Hector's doing here is he's putting in the resin now, so which is your part A. Your resin goes in, you scrape out as much as you can. Your hardener will be the same thing. It's a very deep honey color to it. So when that goes into it, that's your reactant. That's what actually makes it cure. And when epoxy dries, it's hard plastic is really what it is. Consistent colors. And the nice thing about our epoxy is there's no sheen to it when it's dry. There will be a sheen on it when it's curing out, but as it dries and when it becomes fully cured, it will look like a regular traditional sanded grout. It won't have that plasticky shine to it. So he's basically taking it, mixing it a little bit together. He'll throw the powder in just a moment. You can mix it by hand, or you can mix it with a drill. What he's got here is what we refer to as our commercial units. So it's got 2 of everything inside of it. We also have gallon units for this product, which is just going to be a single gallon unit. So it'll have everything you need in it. We're going to ask you to mix up everything in its proper proportions because we don't like job site scientists. You ever heard that term before? Job site scientists can get you in trouble because if you don't put enough of the hardener in or you don't put enough of the resin in, you're not going to have a completely cured out product. It could be very rubbery. It may never dry out at all. Let me get a little bit of that sand from you. So here, that's the fine powder that's in it. So it's a very, very fine powder to it. And are you going to mix the whole thing? Yeah, he's going to mix the whole thing to it. If you notice here, now we're not recommending this. Hector's not wearing gloves. Typically with epoxies, you want to wear gloves. You want to wear the proper gear to it. We will say this, if anybody's allergic to resins, it is a resin product, but it is not a caustic product. I can't really say enough about this product. When I do demos with this product, this is what I always refer to. It has a very big wow factor to it, meaning that when people see how easy this product is to use, they're amazed by it in the sense that epoxies people are really scared of those products, and we're trying to get out there and let everybody know that, you know what, don't be scared of a product that is probably one of the best types of grouts I can think of within our industry. Okay, so he's mixing it up by hand. And again, like I said, you can use a drill to mix it up. Got it? Okay. So, and he's going to do the same type of application as we did with the ready-to-use grout, with the Elite or the SIKA tile. Is He's going to take his damp sponge and just damp, not wet, not oversaturate the surface, wipe it down just to introduce a little moisture or get rid of any contaminants that might be on that surface. For vertical surfaces, this already has a non-sag built into it. Epoxies, if you're not familiar with the way epoxies cure, epoxies actually, if you were to look at them on a graph, what an epoxy will do is once it's mixed up, it will be going in, you get into the grout joints, it will actually get softer before it gets harder. So it goes through this little chemical curing process where it can get soft, and that's where if it doesn't have the proper materials in it for vertical surface, you get it in the grout joints, and a couple of hours later, it looks like it could be melting out of the grout joints. It may have not had that proper component for a vertical application, or it may not be made for vertical applications. So this has everything in it already there. In the old days, we used to call it Part D, which was a fly ash that we'd add to that product to be able to do on those vertical surfaces to keep it from sagging. Excuse me. And the application, again, is the same. He's going to take this. You will notice it is a little bit stiffer than the ready-to-use grout. It's a little bit stiffer than the Portland cement type of grout. But it goes in, you wet that surface down, especially on a floor type of surface, horizontal, it smears super easy into the joints. And you can only do half the board hectare. So he's getting it into the joints, pushing it in there. How do we make sure our joints are full when it looks like a speed bump, when it can't take any more product to it? So he'll put it in the joints. Now let me ask you a question. On the ready to use, we didn't have to wait before we cleaned it up. With an epoxy grout, how long do we have to wait before we clean it up? Anybody? My hearing's not real great, so how long do we have to wait before we can start cleaning up epoxy? I heard a next day somewhere. It can be right away, okay? Now, typically with epoxies, if you're doing large areas, they'll actually, as manufacturers, will recommend taking that product once it's mixed up and just making what I call my little cow patties, and you just take it out and you separate itself from its family. When you separate itself from its family, you're slowing it down because it is a chemical reaction, and when a little bit of it starts to go off, it starts to tell the rest of it to go off. Now, our pot life for this product can be 45 minutes to an hour. I've worked with it doing PKs and demos like this out of the same mix for almost a couple of hours in cooler weather. But the pot life for this product, we traditionally tell people if you can't get it out of the bucket in 45 minutes to an hour, then you need to not mix up the entire full commercial unit, only mix up partial units to that. Now, as you can see what Hector's doing here, he's getting on it immediately with a little doodle bug. It does make it a little easier to break that tension of the surface, to get a little bit of the resins off the surface of it. But he'll take it and he'll scrub it. As he scrubs it, if you were to look real closely to it here, you'll start to see this white foam start to appear on it. And that's the surfactants. That's the soap that we've built into the product to be able to help it clean off easier. If you've ever done or dealt with epoxy grouts, sometimes you'll get this oily residue afterwards that will say, hey, go back with some warm water and mop it off. This actually has that surfactant built into it. We don't have to worry about it. So once we do our final cleanup with clean water, we're done. We just let it dry. I will say the only downfall to an epoxy grout is that cure time, is that dry time, 24 hours before you get on it or allow animals on it, anything with little claws. Because it will, like I said earlier, go from a stage to where it will actually get softer before it gets harder. But it's about a 24-hour period before this product gets to that point where you can have traffic on it. See how easy that was? That's epoxy grout. Now, that's how I always make that bet with somebody saying, hey, I can do this faster than somebody can with a traditional grout. Traditional grout, earlier I keep asking how long do we wait before we clean it up. That traditional grout can be anywhere from 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We used to wait, back in the day of saying, when it haze is over, it's time to clean it up, right? Well, we don't do that anymore because most tiles being installed are porcelain tiles. They don't have the absorption rate that a ceramic tile would. So even though it's hazing over, that grout inside the joints might still be soft. If you get on it too soon, you're going to pull it out of the joints. You're going to pull some of the color out of it. You might end up having blotchy grout joints, shaded grout joints. With these, you don't have to worry about that. Once it's in the joint, you can have your helper or yourself start cleaning it up right away. It's fast. That's how I always win my bets. Now, that covers grouts. We also have, just to mention too, we've also got a full line series of grouts. We got our Duracolor series, which is our traditional Portland cement and sanded. We've got our SIKA tile line that has the traditional Portland cement sanded. We've also got an upgraded grout that is on the SIKA tile. We call it 850, and on the Merkrete side we call it Pro Patch Plus. These are Pro Grout Plus. These are enhanced grouts. These are your premium or high performance types of grouts. They dry faster. They have a little bit more calcium aluminum in them. They're able to control the colors a little bit better. They're denser products. Now, one last unique thing here. Two more things. Uh-oh. I need to lose weight. Okay, now we've got dustless. Has anybody ever seen this yet? We've got our dustless mortars. So we carry the patent on dustless products. So we actually have dustless mortars, dustless grouts, to where they are 80% less dust. Rick, stand up for me. You're my sucker now. Right. I'm going to give you the good one. Okay, so this right here Rick has is the dustless formula, 80% less dust. We're going to shake them and open the lids. This is a standard traditional. Go ahead. This is what you normally see when you mix up thin sets, grouts. This is what you see with our products. So it's 80% less dust. What does that mean for you? Clean on the job. You're not putting dust up in the air. You're not putting anything that's out there that's not supposed to be. 80% of it there. We are still going to recommend that you still take all precautions for silica that you would on any normal job. But let's say on a rainy day, if you're mixing out in the yard or it's not raining and you move into the garage next to the homeowner's Mercedes mixing, you're going to have a lot less dust. On the commercial applicators, who's the poor guy always in the corner that all he does all day long is mix up mortar? He comes home looking like the guy from Charlie Brown and the Peanuts, with a little dust cloud over his head. This will save you on that. Now, the last thing on here that I wanted to mention is we've also just recently launched slake-free. So all of our products are slake-free. Now, for those that don't understand the slake-free, typically when you mix up a bag of mortar, a bag of grout, because of the polymers or dry dispersible polymers, you mix those products into it, or we manufacture them into it, you add your water, you mix up that product. What are you traditionally supposed to do? You mix it and you walk away for 10 to 15 minutes, however long we're telling you to do it. Well, with a slake-free now, we don't need to do that. You can mix it up and use it immediately. And that's even for our high-performance mortars like our LHTs. And LHTs traditionally are mortars that you really have to let it slake to get the full performance of that mortar. With the polymers that we're using now, no longer have to let it slake, even with the grouts. You mix it up and you can start using it right away. So that is available in all of our products that we manufacture, from our Merkrete side all the way through the SIKA tile side. So any last questions? We got a couple of stuffed animals left. Oh, gosh. I need to lose more weight. Got a little... I'm sorry? Just water. No warm water. It's a cold water cleanup. If you notice, if you come up here and touch it, you don't feel a little bit of oil on it, but otherwise it'll all dissipate off. Little Bluetooth speaker. As a giveaway here, anybody who's asking? He's asked my most questions, so we'll go right here with it. We've got some stuffed animals here. We call them Mercats for Merkrete. We've also got more at our booth. Come by, stop by, see, talk to our reps. Get some more stuffed animals, pens, pencils. We've got little battery chargers. So if that's it, we'll be hanging out, cleaning up here for a few minutes. If you got any questions, please come up and ask us. Thank you.